Hey, true believers, Chris Mack coming at you with X-Force Killshot Anniversary Special #1. And one thing I do want to say right off the bat, if y'all remember, it's been a while now, but we did go over New Mutants War Children, and in a sense that was kind of like an anniversary, or at least reprising the story of the original New Mutants, and it had the same creative team. I mean, it wasn't one of the original creators, which was Bob McLeod, but at least on that book, it was Chris Claremont writing, Bill Sienkiewicz doing the artwork. I say that to say this. As we dive into this book, there's Liefeld. You can tell Liefeldism all over the book. Okay, get it. But what really personally irked me, as you can see here, let's go over the cast. This is Rob Liefeld's story, overall story, pencils, inks. Chad Bauer's script. Brian Valenza, Federico Blee, and Mirza Viovan doing the colors. VC's Joe Sabino doing the lettering. Everyone else working on the book here. Now, what really irritated me when you look at this rundown is you go all the way back to when Liefeld was getting ready to jump into X-Force. It was him and Fabian Nicieza. And together, Rob kind of plotting here or there, Fabian scripting it out, and then Rob doing the artwork. There was some corny parts of the original book, but it endured. It was endearing. People loved the characters. And the plots, for the most part, were really fun. I look back on Nicieza doing X-Force and X-Men with fond memories. The same thing with Peter David on X-Factor. And then Scott Liddell doing Uncanny X-Men and doing, Generation X. So here, to not see Fabian Nicieza's name on the list, that really pissed me off. They really should have just got together and redid it, just as I was talking about how Claremont and Sienkiewicz came back to do New Mutants War Children, which if you've not read it, I'll leave a card somewhere in this review, but excellent freaking book. This one, not so much. I looked at Chad Bauer's, kind of creations from Marvel. Yeah, a lot of what he's written I have not liked. X-Men 92 being right there on the top of the list. It had a whole lot of that LOL so random humor. And sadly, we get some of that. Now, let's give credit where credit is due. The artwork's not too bad. I mean, I'm out of practice, and, Liefeld could kick my ass day and night in terms of artwork. I think what really kind of bored it for me was the fact that you look at Cable's face here, has that square jaw. Shatterstar, same square jaw. Warpath, square jaw. Even Domino, the female looks, when you draw a female, is always supposed to be a lot smoother, less defined, chiseled edges to give them more of that soft, feminine feature. Square jaw. And they go on with these characters for pages and pages. The that's kind of one thing why I want to say. That's where the artwork for me really started to get kind of bland, was just square jaw, round head, okay. So the overall premise, yes, there is a premise, I assure you. Strife has this big doomsday weapon, and he's going to destroy humanity. So Cable essentially, recruits new and old and future members of X-Force. So we see kind of the more the 90s Cable. This is, I think, supposed to be the modern Major X. And then this Shatterstar. I think this is supposed to be modern day Shatterstar. But when I look at his hair, I'm like, maybe it's Shatterstar, or maybe it's Maybelline. I mean, look at that freaking hair. You're just like, oh my god. And then we get old school Warpath, which was welcome. Same thing with Deadpool. But then it just keeps going. We get old school Shatterstar, which is like, yes! I've never seen this Major X or this type of Cable. More of the past Domino. The Thing, which I did not know Thing at one point was part of X-Force. And then the Uncanny X-Force Deadpool, which if you've never read Rick Remender's Uncanny X-Force, fan-frickin-tastic. And as you can see, keeps going. We even get like the movie version of Domino, and then of course Venom Pull. You're just kind of, okay, let's get on with it. And then, for God's sake, he finally gets on with it. And one thing that kind of made my butt pucker a little bit is this older version of Deadpool says, where are the X-Men? After all the trouble Strife's caused them, the Legacy Virus, the Messiah War, didn't he, like, try to assassinate Xavier? And what he's talking about there is, if you guys never read the Executioner song, Strife poses as Cable and shoots Xavier with the Legacy Virus, which almost killed him, and everyone was on the hunt for Cable. And this was back before they really knew that the Cable and Strife were clones of each other. So, just for y'all's peace of mind. And here's where my butt starts to pucker is, Cable says, right, you're away from the past. You don't know about Krakoa. Oh, God, this takes place in Krakoa time. Suffice it to say, the X-Men have enough on their plate. Running a mutant paradise and all. I just keep out the snakes. Oh, God, it just makes you kind of wish to say, hey, Strife, can you point that Doomsday device at Krakoa and just be done with it? And just destroy all those nasty, ugly pod people, plants, please, 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 and thank you. And then before we can get any further than that, more straight-on shots, which are kind of boring. And then finally, starting to get some action, where he just says, come in, do your worst. This is not what do you call it? This is not a way to, we're not taking Strife hostage, etc., so forth, so just do your worst. And he says this is a surgery with a 50, what was he said, with a 50 caliber bullet or something like that. It was a pretty cool moment, but you have to read the book if you want to know. So, you could feel some of the old school X-Force energy once we start to dive into it. But the standing and talking, ugh. And then, of course, like I said, a lot of the faces, like here, this was a great version of Cannonball. And when I saw this and saw Sam blasting, he goes, now, don't this bring back memories? I don't know how meta the writers were supposed to get with that, but yes, that very much reminded me of old school Cannonball that I like, and not these, as I just said, horrible Krakoan pod people that are not the X-Men that we all know and love. And then, of course, we get some really cool moments of Shatterstar slashing, and then the old school Mutant Liberation Front, which is, what does Strife say here? He's basically saying that they're supposed to be the inheritors of the Earth because they've been so loyal to him, essentially. And then we kind of get some back and forth between all the different years of Shatterstar, which I don't care what anyone says. The old version will always be my dude. Because then he goes, Was vid, was I once this so insufferable? Yes, took me years to settle down. It's just a journey, but trust me, he'll get there eventually. Which I do want to say, if you guys have remember when we did, what was it? It was one of the reviews. I can't remember which one it was, but it was the X-Force Annual, the Shatter shot. Oh God, I haven't had enough coffee. Anyway, if y'all remember in that review, I was kind of going over that because I loved it. I loved the way that the creative team fleshed out Shatterstar and how he was the future ruler of Mojo World. And then I was kind of in the same way doing a juxtaposition of the modern Shatterstar book, where it was just that whole LOL so random Twitter humor. And so when he says, it's a journey, but he'll get there eventually, I'm just like, yeah, please don't turn into this guy because your future books are so boring. I'd rather take the hot-headed, loyal to X-Force and the team Shatterstar here, and not, what did he say? I can't remember what he said his name was, but, I'm a, what is it called? He was a tenant or a home, what's that called when you take care of apartments? Landlord. I'm a landlord. Yeah, that's exactly what we want to read is Shatterstar, the future freedom fighter of this world. Now, landlord, I don't fucking care. So yeah, we'll just pretend that these iterations don't exist and stick with the action-packed Shatterstar that just did not give a damn. And then of course we get what's this guy's name? Yeah. It's been so long. Reaper is his name. And we get some great moments with him and Major X. And I do feel like if Marvel hadn't really tried to rush the Krakoan lines and just would have let Matthew Rosenberg and those kind of creative teams just continue on with what they were doing. Like, if you read the latter half of Matthew Rosenberg's Uncanny X-Men, oh my god, fan-freaking-tastic. The same thing with, I think it was Kelly Thompson doing Mr. and Mrs. X. And there was another great book during that time. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head. But they were awesome. They were breaking the mold. They were kind of moving the characters in a positive, different way. And then right in the middle of it, they let Liefeld do Major X, which, again, it has a lot of his normal tropes, but at least it was engaging. It was action-packed. And then they're like, oh no, we're going to do Krakoa. And all that got wiped off the board. So seeing Major X kind of in this timeline was a welcome addition, especially what he does to Reaper here, and then a reappearance of the future Dreadpool, which is one of Major X's villains. And so, again, the action, awesome. You know, you can't say that looks bad. I've seen bad artwork. That's relatively decent. I mean, it looks kind of generic the way that Wild Side or Wild Child, whatever his name is kind of twisted, but still better than a lot of the boring panels I've seen in a lot of modern comics. And then we kind of get to the center of the shrubbery maze, and Strife kind of gives a half-ass reason why he's shooting this doomsday device at Earth. And, you know, you really have to kind of suspend your belief a lot to really swallow that type of pill, because it's not something that Strife would do. You know, if you would go back and you read the adventures of Cyclops and Phoenix when Strife was just a kid, and the hatred and animosity that he has towards Cable because of what it does to how it severs his relationship with Apocalypse, it's just kind of And then one thing that I kind of wish would happen is in modern comics is, you know, let dead be dead. Because we think that Major X has finally taken out Strife after all these years. It'd just be nice to kind of have that summed up and kind of force people to create new villains, even though I'm particularly fond of Strife. But of course, you know, comics being comics, doesn't happen. And then we get this character that's like an anti-Zero. And he's like, he says he's made a deal with Cable, and Cable's like, I don't remember making any deal with you, which we get no explanation for. And then he's like, this Zero is just like, you know, enjoy your victory, don't try to follow me. And it ends with Cable saying, you know what, we're going to follow him. Who needs to reload? And this is supposed to be an anniversary issue, a one-shot. So why are we leaving it on a cliffhanger unless Liefeld's in the talks of trying to get his own version of an X-Force book, maybe, and this was just the jumping off point? It is possible, but again, if you go back and you read New Mutants War Children, you know, Claremont said it, obviously in the time when they were just still students, because Sam and Danny and all them have grown into X-Force, etc., so forth. So he set it in between kind of a time frame where he could find a lull in the continuity, and it worked. It was so great. It felt good to be back in that world, in that time period. It felt like we were back in the early 80s. Other than the artwork, and maybe a few nostalgic nods here and there, the tonal feel of this book is just very scattered. I kind of feel that this should have, I feel like Liefeld should have looked at War Children and said, okay, you know what? Let's go back to the 90s, find a point where we can kind of dive in somewhere. Hell, even as I said in the Shatter Shot review, I would love to see more of that future X-Force where it was, what was it? Ileana was now the Dark Child, and then Maxine Powers from the Power Pack was part of the team. Cable had passed on. I would love to see more of that world, and then that would have been kind of a great way to use this to kind of explore that. But again, I guess Liefeld just kind of, give the fans what they want, which I think a lot of them were buying it for the covers. There's a Deadpool connection for this, and of course that's the hardest one to find, which who gives a shit? And then of course, those that loved X-Force for just the artwork, then, they're going to get serviced in that regard. But for those of us like me that are story chasers, the plot's loose at best. There's a lot of those member berries where you remember this and you remember that, and that's cool. But don't rely on that to be your meat and potatoes of your book. The whole over arc is what should really drag you in. And like I said, it's loose at best. So other than, seeing Strife and Zero and the Mutant Liberation Front and the different iterations of X-Force, there's not a whole lot here in terms of story, guys. The art's fun. There's some of the dialogue's entertaining. But I would say at the price point of, what was this thing, $5? No. If you can find it like down the road on sale, like, sometimes you'll find stuff in the dollar bin, or people will trade it in, and like sometimes it'll be marked down like $3. I'd say if you can find it for those price points, yes, but not for the cover price. Hell no. So with that said, if you guys have enjoyed what you've seen, which I said, it's not a bad book, but it's not the, it's not War and Peace or, the next great American novel. So if you just want some cheesy 90s fun and just kind of turn your brain off, then that's what you're going to get with this, and I can't damn it for that. If it's fun, we're going to go with that. If you have enjoyed this review, we really would appreciate if you take a moment to hit like, share, and subscribe. Helps the club channel more than you could possibly know. And if you wouldn't mind hitting that fancy little Strife bell next to subscribe, that way as we continue to upload content, you guys will get notified. Come to the channel, and we love talking with you all and hearing your thoughts and feedback down in the comments below, or social media pages, which I'll make sure to leave the links down in the description. So with all that said, thank you so much for stopping by. Hope you all continue to have an absolutely amazing day reading, and happy hunting, true believers.